Hello, everybody. Welcome to another edition of the EOB Podcast. So last weekend, we have the release of 3 new movies. We have the Wednesday opener, Crazy Rich Asians, which features all Asian cast. And then we have the Mark Wahlberg actioner, Mile 22. And then we have the prehistoric action-adventure movie, Alpha. So let's see how those movies did at the box office. All right, let's jump right in. So the movie that came in number 1 is unsurprisingly Crazy Rich Asians. It's just that it didn't perform as well as I thought it would perform. Okay, the movie pulled in 25 million 3 days. For 5 days is 34 million. So it's quite off from my projections. I had the movie opening at 3 days 35 to 40 million and 5 days 50 million. The reason why I had the number so high is because this movie was much hyped. I mean, you couldn't walk out the door without tripping over promotion for this movie. You know, the advertisements were everywhere, interviews, all the media writing how what a watershed event this movie is, because you know it was I think 25 years since the last all Asian cast movie that was the Joy Club. So this is kind of the new movie. They don't know how a movie that has all Asian cast will perform, and you know, Warner Brothers, and John M. Chu, the director, and all the producers, you know, they kind of bet on this one, but they knew what they had, right? It was based on a best-selling book by Kevin Kwan. You know, it's the first of a trilogy, by the way. So you know, if this one does well, which it did, they will probably produce more. And the movie only cost about 30 million to make, which is decent for a comedy like this. So why it didn't perform as well as I projected the movie to do? Well, mainly it's because of the media hype, right? You know, the Warner Brothers, blanketed the airwaves, blanketed, the interwebs, blanketed the talk shows. You know, there are lots of articles generated, lots of ink spilled, written about this movie and how important this movie is, because hey, since when was the last time a movie that's featured an all-female cast was made, in Hollywood? So I thought, with all the hype, it could get a bump, from all the press generated, but it didn't turn out to be true. I thought this could be one of these movies where it became a cultural event like Black Panther, and it can grab the attention and the awareness of the people who are not in the target demographic, right, which is or Asians, right? You would think that people of other colors and cultural background could come in and watch this movie, but it didn't blow up as I hoped. Okay, so but it's still right. It did better than what other people, the box office analysts were projecting. People were kind of low on it, right? But it performed well, right? It already made back its budget. So 25 million opening for 3 days is still good for a romantic comedy, like all Asian cast aside, which goes to show that there is a market for a movie that's made with an off Asian cast, or maybe we project further, right, with other ethnicities as well, right, as long as it's well made and it tells a story that are relatable. So Crazy Rich Asians is kind of there, right? Black Panther proves that an all-black cast can open superhero movies, can generate big blockbuster movies. Crazy Rich Asians show, hey, people of different ethnicities, especially that's different, right, and that of Eastern origin, right, can open movies as well, can lead a cast and could generate box office. It might not be as big, maybe because it is a rom-com, and rom-com generally doesn't open that huge. Right, but this one did well. I think the marketing did well. I mean, if the marketing was not there, it probably could be lower, right? But the bump, the the cultural bump, the advertising bump that I was expecting was not there for Crazy Rich Asians. So it only opened to 25 million 3 days, and 34 million 5 days. So there it goes. It's still successful. Let's see how well it holds up second weekend. The reviews are great for this movie, right? It has an A cinema score. It has a 93% on Rotten Tomatoes. So reviews are there, but we will see if it can hold up the second weekend. I mean, we're thinking, people might have front loaded this movie, right? Well, not front loaded, but it has a 5 days already, so it shows that it kind of have some staying power, right? But we'll see how this movie performed the second weekend before we can say that it's a success. But early estimates are there that this movie will probably gross over 100 million domestically, which is pretty good for a movie that costs 30 million to make, and and a rom-com. So there you go. By all measures, right? Initially, Crazy Rich Asian is a success. All right, let's move on to number 2, which is, surprisingly, The Meg. I expect this movie to drop off in the maybe 60% range, but it only dropped off about 53% to pull in 21 million. This is a movie that I thought could open 15 to 20 million, in its opening frame, but it opened to 45 million. Explain that, right? I mean, a shark movie. Jason Statham, cast with again Asian faces as well. It shouldn't perform as well as it did, but it did, right? And internationally, especially in China, it performed pretty good as well. Like, let's take a look. It already pulled in 315 million worldwide. Okay, let that sink in. 315 million worldwide, 232 million of that from overseas, and a movie with a shark starring Jason Statham. I couldn't wrap my mind around that. But there you go. One of these movies that is kind of there. Kind of a lightning in a bottle kind of movie where it's just at the right place at the right time, and this movie performed well. And the budget for this movie, it says on Box Office Mojo 130 million. I read that other places placed the movie's budget to be 150. So yeah, go figure. Like I said, who in the right mind would put 130 million to 150 million in a shark movie starring Jason Statham, right? Again, something that I couldn't wrap my mind around, right? Number 1 is the budget. Number 2, how well it's doing. So hey, what do I know, right? Okay, let's move on to number 3, which is Mile 22, starring Mark Wahlberg and directed by Peter Berg. They team up together for Lone Survivor and a couple other actioner. Pulled in 13.6 million, a little bit lower than what I expected the movie to do. I said the movie could probably open somewhere between 25 to 30 million, because that's what these typical Mark Wahlberg actioner would collaboration with Peter Berg usually open to. And this movie also stars the guy from the Raid movies. I believe his name, let's see, his name is Iko Uwais. So that guy, I thought this might be a good actioner for those people who are interested in these type of actions, right? But it didn't perform as well, so I thought maybe everyone went to see The Meg. Right? Go figure. I couldn't explain this. Again, I if you ask somebody, I don't think they could explain it as well. Yeah, all right, let's move on to number 4, which is Mission Impossible Fallout. It dropped about 46% from its previous weekend to pull in 10.5 million. Domestic gross is 180 right now, and worldwide it is at 501 million. So it's gonna be, like I said, one of the higher grossing Mission Impossible movies, and Tom Cruise is gonna make more. All right, Alpha, a movie, like I said, it was kind of an odd movie to me because it doesn't star anybody you heard of, and the young lead I felt was kind of uncharismatic. I said the movie could probably pull it in somewhere about 5 million, because who would want to watch a movie like this? But it did a bit better than I expected the movie to do. It pulled in 10.5 million. So and the budget is 51 million. So one of these movies, like I said, that it's kind of there. I expect this movie to drop off, the second weekend, because I don't know. I don't see the word of mouth there for this movie. As a B+ cinema score, the tomato meter rating for this is 85%, which is surprisingly well reviewed. Another surprise to me. But then again, this movie is just there, I feel. All right, let's move on to number 6, which is Christopher Robin. The movie pulled in about 9 million over the weekend. Domestic gross in its third weekend right now is about 67 million. And let's see, worldwide is at about 90 million on a budget of 70 to 75 million. The movie didn't open as well as I thought it would open to, because I thought Disney's marketing muscle could bump the opening figure up a bit, but it didn't. It opened only to 25 million. So there you go. But then again, this is a Pooh movie, right? And Pooh movies usually don't perform that well. All right, let's move on to number 7, which is the Spike Lee movie BlacKkKlansman. It pulled in about 7 million in the second weekend. Drop off is about decent 36%, and domestic gross right now is about 23 million. The budget is about 15, so it's one of the higher openers for a Spike Lee film, despite it opening only about 10 million, which is still higher than some of his other movies. So this is one of his better performers. All right, number 8 is the horror movie Slender Man. It pulled in about 5 million in the second weekend. Drop off is about 56%, which is kind of lowish considering the type of movie it is, horror movie, right? And domestic gross is about 20.7 million. And worldwide, it hasn't opened that wide yet. It's 22 million, and the budget is only about 10. So it's making money already. All right, number 9 is Hotel Transylvania 3 Summer Vacation. It pulled in about 3.7 million in its 6th weekend. Domestic gross is 153 million, and worldwide is at 426 million. So yeah, like I said, we're going to see more Hotel Transylvanias. And closing out the top 10 is the musical Mamma Mia, Here We Go Again. It's the sequel to the 2008 movie. It pulled in about 3.4 million in its 5th weekend. Domestic gross is about 111 million, and worldwide it is at 319 million, and the budget is only about 75 million. So it's doing quite well. Despite it not grossing as well as the first movie, it's doing quite well. All right, let's move on to the new releases. We have A.X.L, which is at its heart about a guy and his dog, right? And then we have the Happytime Murders, which is a Melissa McCarthy comedy, R-rated Melissa McCarthy comedy with Muppets. Let's take on A.X.L first. It's opening in 1,500 theaters. So it's about a guy who's on his motorbike, found a robotic dog during one of his runs, right? And he saved it, they bonded, and the entity, the company who made this, the dog, wants to retrieve it, right? And they go on this chase, right? Let's see, there's no reviews on Rotten Tomatoes yet, but hey, it's a a guy and his dog, robot dog. So it's in the same vein as one of the recent, kind of like all the other dog movies, but kind of like that monster truck movie as well, right? About a monster that lives in a guy's truck, kind of like that. Opening wise, I think this movie could probably open somewhere between 5 and 8 million. I don't see it breaking 10 unless I'm wrong again, like I was last weekend. So there you go, A.X.L, 5 to 8 million. All right, let's move on to Happytime Murders. It's a Melissa McCarthy comedy and R-rated, but it has Muppets. So McCarthy stars as a cop who has to team up with a Muppet cop. He's a Muppet. To solve a series of murders of Muppets. This is not Sesame Street, so there's scenes of violence and also sexual in nature and all the stuff that you would expect in an R-rated comedy, right? So Melissa McCarthy, Muppets. Not something that you expect. Like I said, Melissa McCarthy has her fans, and these type of comedies also has its fans. The movie also stars Elizabeth Banks and Joel McHale. I'm thinking 20 to 25 opening because Muppets and Melissa McCarthy and Muppets. Alright, kind of short one for this week. Tune in next week to see how I did with my projections. Until then, take care. Bye bye.